In Silicon Valley, there is one rule everyone believes. If you move fast enough, you can change the world. But in 2003, a 19-year-old college dropout made a promise that would eventually destroy a $9 billion company. Her name was Elizabeth Holmes, and she claimed she had invented a machine that could run hundreds of medical tests using just a single drop of blood. If it worked, it would revolutionize healthcare. Blood tests would become faster, cheaper, accessible to millions of people around the world. Investors were captivated. Doctors were curious. The media called it the future of medicine. But inside the company, the technology barely worked, and what started as an ambitious idea slowly became one of the biggest deceptions in Silicon Valley history. This is the story of Theranos, and the $9 billion lie that fooled the world. Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos in 2003. She had just dropped out of Stanford University. Her vision was simple. Instead of drawing large vials of blood from patients, doctors could run dozens, even hundreds, of tests using a single drop. The idea sounded almost magical, and that's exactly why investors loved it. Holmes spoke with confidence. She dressed in black turtlenecks like Steve Jobs. She talked about changing the world, and people believed her. Soon, Theranos raised hundreds of millions of dollars from powerful investors. Former U.S. Secretaries of State joined the board. Military generals joined the board. Billionaires invested. And the company's valuation exploded. By 2014, Theranos was worth more than $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes herself was now worth over $4 billion. She was celebrated as the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. There was only one problem. The technology still didn't work. Inside Theranos laboratories, engineers were struggling. The machines produced inaccurate results. Blood samples became contaminated. Tests failed again and again. But instead of slowing down, the company pushed forward. Executives insisted the technology would eventually catch up to the promises. Meanwhile, Theranos made deals with major companies. One of the biggest partnerships was with Walgreens. Soon, Theranos testing centers began appearing inside pharmacies across the United States. Patients walked in, believing they were using revolutionary technology, but many of their samples were secretly being tested using traditional lab machines. The same machines Theranos claimed it was replacing. Employees inside the company started to worry. Some spoke up, others left. But the company culture discouraged criticism, and the public image of Theranos remained flawless until a journalist started asking questions. In 2015, Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou began investigating the company. Former employees started sharing what they had seen. The machines weren't reliable, the tests weren't accurate, and the revolutionary technology simply didn't exist. When the first investigation was published, the reaction was immediate. Regulators began looking into the company, doctors began questioning test results, and investors began to panic. The illusion that had taken more than a decade to build started collapsing in months. Partnerships disappeared. Walgreens shut down its Theranos testing centers. Regulators banned the company from operating laboratories. Investors wrote off hundreds of millions of dollars. The company's valuation collapsed from $9 billion to almost nothing. Employees lost their jobs, patients questioned their diagnoses, and the startup once celebrated as the future of healthcare became a symbol of Silicon Valley excess. In 2018, Theranos officially dissolved. The company that promised to change medicine no longer existed. But the story didn't end there. Elizabeth Holmes was eventually charged with multiple counts of fraud. Prosecutors argued she had knowingly misled investors and patients. The trial became one of the most closely watched cases in Silicon Valley history. And in 2022, Holmes was found guilty. The entrepreneur once praised as a visionary was sentenced to prison. The $9 billion empire had been built on promises that never came true. The Theranos scandal exposed something deeper than one company's failure. It revealed how easily confidence can replace evidence, how ambition can overshadow truth, and how powerful stories can convince people to believe in something that doesn't exist. Because the most dangerous lies in business are not always obvious. Sometimes they start as optimism, then become exaggeration, then become necessity, until finally, the lie becomes the foundation of everything. And when that foundation collapses, everything built on top of it collapses too. Theranos didn't fail because the idea was impossible. It failed because the promise arrived long before the technology. And once the world believed the promise, there was no easy way to admit the truth. But the story of Theranos isn't just about one company. It's a reminder of how powerful belief can be, especially in a world obsessed with innovation and disruption. Because sometimes the most dangerous decisions aren't made with bad intentions. They're made with confidence. Confidence that things will eventually work out. Confidence that the future will catch up to the promise. But when reality finally arrives, the consequences can be enormous. If you enjoy stories about the biggest business decisions and the consequences behind them, consider subscribing. Leave a like if you found this story interesting, and let me know in the comments.
How do you make people believe in you?
How do you make people believe in you?